Hello, hello. It is so good to see each of you here today. We are back after a short break with the podcast Margins, and I am joined by a group of really great people. I have my buddy Donnie Keel the third on here. Don't get it twisted. We have John Aiken the third. Don't get that twisted. And then we have Kayla. How you doing? And then we have my man Michael Nixon. And it is so good to have each of you guys on the pod today. We are starting a new series, launching into a new series. We hope you enjoyed the series that we had last year. We closed off looking at the parables of Jesus. We encourage you to check that out if you have some free time. But this year, as we head into 2024 and as we head into season 2 of Margins, we're going to be working on a series called Faith Talks, looking at Hebrews 11. And our team met, everyone here, we met a couple of weeks ago, and we started to talk about this idea, this theme, this process of Hebrews 11, what we want to do with it. And what we learned is that there's so many stories in there that we want to unearth and unpack and journey through. So this next season, it's going to look a little different. We'll start off reading in Hebrews 11, and then whatever story it references, we'll head to that story and we will just pick it apart and have a great time discussing it. And I think we're going to have a great couple of discussions. We're going to learn a lot. There's some rich stories there. And as we start and as we begin this journey, I want to throw a question out there to kind of start us on the Faith Talks mountain as we're walking up this mountain and figuring out what faith is. And that is, to everyone here, what is faith? Or how would you define faith? What is it to you? And I just want to throw that question out there to our group right now. And I want us to take time to wrestle with that question, because I think this journey that we're going to take through Hebrews 11 will inform us as we carry on. But today, as we start, what are y'all thinking?
It's a great question. I'll get us started. And it's great to be back on the pod. Happy New Year, everyone. Michael Nixon the first, by the way. I didn't realize I had to be a third to be on the pod, but it's all good. But in regards to the question, what is faith? I was actually having
He said I'm the only.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine actually recently about this, who's been dealing with some stuff, and we were processing it. And I was reminded of one of my favorite, more recent quotes by an author named Anne Lamott on faith. And I'll paraphrase it. And she says that faith is not the absence of doubt. It's the absence of certainty. And really talking about how doubt and uncertainty and questioning can actually be like a fuel to your faith. And that's been an interesting journey for me in recent years, because I think a lot of times within, religion and church culture, you're sort of taught that doubt is like the enemy of faith. And doubt is like this indictment against you having faith. Whereas I've actually seen that, doubt is actually not the enemy of faith, but it can be sort of the breeding ground or the fuel for it, because it points you towards your need for, substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen. Why would you need hope unless you were in a potentially hopeless situation, for example? And so, it's not the absence of doubt, it's the absence of certainty. So in the midst of the questioning, in the midst of the difficulty, that's where faith can activate. So that's how I define it.
That's awesome, man. I think that is an initial statement that you've shared that with me before. And the first time I heard it, I was like, But then when you think about it, it's so true, because every time I've gone further into the deep end with Jesus, it seems like it's because there was something happening where I was doubting or worrying, and then I was able to connect that to him, and it didn't disappear instantly, but it kind of was the floaty that took me out into the deep end, if you will. That's awesome, man. Anyone else? What is faith?
I don't know. I think when I process through what faith is, I think of it as this tether, right? This relational tether that keeps me attached to who God is, right? It reminds me of who his character is. I think of it as a way that helps me navigate through those really difficult seasons. Like Michael was saying, I think there are moments where we get into a hopeless situation, and doubt may encourage me to question who God is or question what his promises are towards me. And faith is that thing that I can't always grasp or I can't always explain. But I think it's the thing that keeps me connected to who he said he is when everything else is saying that, no, like God is actually not true. No, he's lying. No, he's not good. Faith is that tether. And I think sometimes, just if I'm honest, in those moments of doubt, it can be really hard to stay connected, but I think it's a choice, right? That he is always holding on to me, but I get to choose whether I stay connected to him. So I think of it as a sort of tether to who God says that he is.
Share with us a little bit more on, I like this idea of tether. Why is it important, you think, to tether yourself to God when it comes to faith? And I'm asking that intentionally because we can tether ourselves to a lot of things.
Yeah, I think it is natural to want to put your hope in something, right? So I think as humans, we do that we can choose what we put our hope into. But I think the idea of being tethered to God and the importance of that is, I think in a world that is always changing, in relationships that are always changing, being connected to something that is constant, right? And not something, but someone who is constant, I think is really important, as well as it gives you a sense of confidence, right? Confidence that no matter what comes, no matter where it goes, I am secure, I'm safe, as well as a sense of purpose, right? I think when everything is shifting and changing, it's really hard to get clarity on what the direction is. But when you're connected to who God is, he is a stable constant who shows you what that direction is. So I think there are several reasons, but I think we get to choose. We get to choose what we have hope in. And my choice really relies on the stability of who Christ says that he is when everything else isn't really stable.
So our faith is almost like our tether we're throwing out and what we're tethering to. I love that. That's so good. I think about being at the lake and my in-laws have a boat and you can choose which dock to pull into when you're going to the restaurant. But you have to know which dock is the right dock, because if you use like the first dock, the waves will come in and they'll hit your boat against the deck. So you have to park it's just, you can tether yourself to any of them, but they all have a different experience.
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying, because tethering ourselves to Jesus should be an experience that is above all others. And if it isn't, maybe we need to keep going, digging deeper.
Yeah.
I love that. What else? What is faith? These are great answers so far. Thanks for sharing, Mike and Kayla.
For me, the first thing that comes to mind, because this is such a big question, right? What is faith? And we all know the right answer, the substance of things, unseen, belief. For me, the aspect that first comes to mind when you bring up that question, though, is having faith or believing in the things that God has said about us, and not just us, but all of humanity, right? And so for me, I'm like, the first thing that comes to mind is believing that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, created in the image of God and a child of God. And I think that begins with having faith in believing that of ourselves and coming back to knowing that we have so much value in the eyes of God, but also then it outpours to the way that we treat everybody we come in contact with, right? Because having faith is believing that is true of all people. And so being able to stand up for others that may not have a voice right now, and treating people well, whether or not it benefits us, whether or not we get something out of it. So for me, having faith is a catalyst to the way that we interact with really all of the world. Is the first thing that comes to mind.
That's kind of out of the box, John. I like that, because I think a lot of times we make faith just something about us and God and forget about faith in others, tying others into that journey. That's real, man. That informs the whole way if we incorporate faith into that way. I mean, going off what Kayla was saying, I kind of said if you're not feeling that, faith is a great thing. Maybe there's a problem. I love what you're saying because it gives us a solution. Like if you feel like faith is this elusive thing that's up there in the air, turn to your neighbor and have faith that you're helping them, etc. That's real, man. I love that. It puts the wheels on the bus. It's really great. Donnie, what about you, man? DK3. We want to honor your time. We know we want to honor it. So you're last. You can share as much as you want, brother.
Well, I just no, I won't. I was gonna clown something, but I won't. I'll bypass the clown. I was gonna make a remark about when my family's out in the boat, and I know Mike knows when his family's out in the boat, and the whole But it's so just like crazy. That sometimes. Anyways, I'll leave it alone. We all know what it's like to be out on our boat.
Oh my!
But
you're so. I don't have a boat. It's not my boat.
We all know what that's like. But anyway, I would say for me, growing up, I heard faith described a lot as an object, oftentimes equated with an anchor. And I don't think that's necessarily like something that's incorrect or bad. But then I think what comes along with that is that the goal is to get more of that object, so you can have a bigger anchor, so it's like stronger. Again, it's not like it's like necessarily problematic, but to me, that making faith into some kind of tangible object like changes the way you interact with it. And the lowest common denominator is to just get more of it. How do I get more of that object? So I think something that's been different for me lately in considering faith is not as an object, but a place or a realm. That it's less about something that you can garner or manufacture or hold, but it's more of a place that you can go, ground that you can stand on. Maybe the other thing I would equate it with is a portal, that it is a looking glass, and it allows me to see into another dimension or another place and experience what's on the other side. I think I've been leaning more towards a realm that it's something that you travel through and eventually you get to the other side. So there is another reality over there. And the bridge between this other reality and where I am is this realm that I travel through, faith. That's pretty philosophical, but I think that framework has kind of helped me see that faith is more experiential than it is like a tangible object, like that faith's main value point is that it's something to be experienced more than it is to be held. So I think what makes the question tricky is that it could be all those things. It could be like there's so many different lenses to look through to answer the question, what is faith? But I think when I ask that question, I'm asking it because I want to experience something. The only point, the point of having an anchor is that you would use it. And I think a lot of times describing it as an object, it's like, I have an anchor so I could have an anchor. And especially if I have like a real big one, it's like, yeah, I bet. So anyways, I think that it could be a perspective. It could be an experience. It could be a choice. It could be some kind of tangible thing. But for me, it's a place, a realm, or a portal.
That's great, man. I love that because I think we were sitting on your couch one time and you had made a cup of coffee. We were getting that cup, and that I don't actually drink because I will have anxiety. But we were getting that cup and you explained this kind of concept to me of not getting more faith. And it wasn't even really about like you can't have more faith, get more faith. But we started talking about the idea of faith isn't an object. It's not something you can hold. It's not. It's this experience, as you're saying. And it honestly, Donnie, really informed a lot of how I view faith, because what I would say to this question is faith is putting something on before you are that thing. That's kind of my experience with faith. And I like that because that's a transformative process. That's a journey. That's something I have to go through. That I have faith today and I'll have faith in 30 days. And faith isn't dependent on how well I'm journeying. It is the journey. It's I have faith in God through all of this, through the ups and downs, through the trials, through the scary moments, through the depressive moments. And I think it goes really well with what you were saying, because faith can become this destination, and we kind of pitch it to people that way. We've been baptizing a lot of people who are living in the park and are houseless, and we're so grateful they're choosing to come to our church. But a lot of them are getting baptized, and it's amazing and it's great. And it's like, okay, now that you have been baptized, do you just have faith now? It's just like, boom, it's done. No, it's a journey that the rest of your life, you're going to be journeying with Jesus, and he's going to inform how you live, how you eat, how you walk, how you talk, the things you do, everything. And I think that actually makes faith more tangible for myself as well, because I think growing up in academy and stuff, always strengthen your faith, have more faith, grow your faith. And so it becomes this thing where we're constantly kind of keeping the faith thermometer. Am I warm enough, or am I cold? Am I lukewarm? Where am I at? Instead of ever really enjoying it and journeying in Jesus. Any closing?
Bro, on that note, yeah. I'll just something that makes me think of is maybe the inverse of the question of what isn't faith, or like what? How do you recognize what it's not? And I think one thing that we do to faith often that it's not is a currency. That the reason we would want more of it is to try to cash it in a moment that somebody is sick, or we want that new job or whatever. And it's like, if you just had more faith and like you, and it's like, I think that's maybe the downside of objectifying faith or turning it into an object, is to try to bank it and hold it. And then the reason you would want to do that is so you can spend it as a currency and cash it in a moment when you want an outcome. Even though that's kind of the antithesis of the way it's presented, that faith is going to do its own thing. It's not something to be wrestled with or squeeze an outcome out of, but we often turn into a currency. And so my answer is, as we go through this journey, something that faith is not is something that is a tool for barter or trade or currency.
I think that was one of the most impactful hot takes of that conversation we had many moons ago. Donnie just has all this wisdom that he's always, loaded up with, ready to go to his house and get some coffee sometime. You won't be disappointed. Get a pro tip. Lock in.
Come through, get this cup.
Come get the cup. But again, I think when you shared that with me, Donnie, I was actually at a time in my life where my wife and I were praying for something. We still are praying for something. And it helped me a lot, because I didn't realize that I was banking faith. Like, oh, we have IVF coming. Oh, we have, we're trying to get pregnant, whatever. Like, I've been faithful. I've been whole. I've been good. And that whole thing is messed up, because it's just implying that I'm good enough somehow on my own, or that I can somehow do it. And so maybe another thing that faith isn't us grasping and grabbing at salvation, but salvation is something we have, and faith is believing we have it. And then in those moments of needing it, it's like, yo, I have this hope. I have this light. I have this new wine. We have all this newness that we can tap into. Mm-hmm. Any closing thoughts?
That changes. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, any closing thoughts, any comments further? John, go for it.
I was just going to say that the essence of faith really is letting go of this transactional relationship we think we have with God. And that's, I think, big. And what you guys were tapping into is that there's nothing I can do to try and be more valuable in the eyes of God, or make God love me more, or make God give me more, because God says everything I have is yours already. I have loved you already since the beginning. And so it's just believing that's true, and that's easier said than done.
It's true, man.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, and I've loved this conversation. So maybe kind of using Donnie's inverse question on what it isn't, kind of just looking at the other side of what I shared. Faith is not always being certain about everything. And I think that we've oftentimes made that what it's into, that I have to continue to just declare my certainty of everything that's happening in my life, and that means I have faith.
Name it and claim it.
Yeah, you just gotta name it and claim it, or you just gotta, oh yeah, I'm going through this thing. Oh, but I'm anchored, brother. Like it's not shaking me. It's like, no, it is shaking you. It is, and if you are in the tension between belief and unbelief, you're experiencing faith. To use Donnie's word, that's the experience. That's the tension, and that's very biblical. Job, though he may slay me, yet will I trust him. There's that story, Lord, we believe, help our unbelief. Jesus in the garden, not my will but thine. Those are all faith moments. And that's the Savior we're talking about now. Like saying, like, Lord, like this cup I'm about to drink, it's a strong cup, and if I could not drink it, that'd be great. But I'm going to submit that to you, even though it's feeling a little rocky, So I just want to affirm for the person who is feeling in between, and maybe whatever it is, and maybe it's not necessarily religious culture, maybe it's the church you're in, maybe it's just you internally kind of shaming yourself because of the fact that you don't feel as certain about everything as you think you should. It does not mean that you don't have faith. You're actually living through that experience of faith.
I love that.
That's real. That's very real. Thank you, Nixon, for that. I think it's kind of that idea of like, when I was listening to you, that idea of like, am I a good Christian or a bad Christian? Like, what if you're just a Christian? What if there is no such a thing as good or bad? What if you just have faith? You might be doubting right now. You might be struggling, but you have, you're wrestling. You have faith. I love that, man. Any other words before we wrap it up?
No, I think all of what we said really resonates with me. And I think a lot of the conversations I've been having recently just about being real about where you are in the process, right? And specifically with God, inviting him in to that space with you, right? Donnie mentioned, right, that it's a journey, but it's not something that we take by yourself. Like me and Faith, we're just doing, right? It's something that I invite Christ into to walk with me, right? When he talks about take this yoke upon me, that yoke wasn't just this thing that just you struggle through by yourself, right? It was literally an older oxen, right, carrying the weight, who was more experienced, and the younger one learning from that, right? So when I process through what faith is, and it's this process where I'm journeying, like Donnie said, with him. I'm journeying through the uncertainty. I'm journeying through the questions and the doubts. And he is showing me, hey, that's where I want you to put your next step, right? This is where I want you to go. This is how I want you to love people. It is a journey with Christ in uncertainty, and being honest about like, God, I really don't know what's up right now. I really don't. And I think those are the moments in that vulnerable space with God where we see faith blossom in ways that we couldn't have expected had we not been in that space with him. Right. I think sometimes from the Adventist perspective, it's easy to think, oh, well, I have to do this. Like, I know we talk about like, it's very much like faith, not works, but we don't always know what that looks like and how to journey through that. But I genuinely do think it's more relational than we give it credit for, that faith is relational to its core, and that the person we are connecting with is the one who teaches us how to live faith. So, yeah.
That's good. So much wisdom on the mic today. Y'all are smart people. That's why we love having you all on here. But with that said, the answer is really vast, I guess. When you ask the question, what is faith? There's not really one answer. And that might be, to Donnie's credit in this, because it's a journey. And so as we wrap up today, and as we've kind of wrestled with this idea of faith, and as we head into a whole series, a whole season about Hebrews 11, the question that we want to leave with y'all listening is really simple. It's the one we've been wrestling. What is faith to you? When you think about faith, when you think about your life, are you the person who doesn't have enough faith? Are you the person who's trying to attain faith as an object? Are you the person trying to bank faith to get grace? Are you the person who understands faith fully and you're feeling solid in it? Wherever you're at, I think we can all learn a lot from that question by asking ourselves, what is faith? But I think we can also learn a lot when we journey through books like Hebrews 11 together. So I'm really excited. I think we're going to have some awesome conversations. This one was just a foretaste. It was supposed to be 10 minutes, but it was 25 because it just shows how deep and how real this is going to get. It's going to be a great season because I think we're all going through a season in our world and our lives and time and culture where faith is a big topic. It's a big thing. So what is faith to you? And we're excited to journey and grow as we all read through Hebrews 11 together. So with that said, it was so good to be with you all today. Great to be back in doing the podcast and sharing with each of you and being with each of you here and those of you listening. And we just want to remind those of you listening that if you want to see us at the One Project, if you want to join in some great community, if you want to hear some amazing worship, some great sermons, we would love to see you there. It's February 16 through 17, and it's in Orlando. So we want to encourage you to register for that. But with that said, we look forward to seeing you next time. And I'm going to close this out with a word of prayer. God, we are thankful for your goodness toward us. We're thankful for your grace toward us. But we're also thankful that faith is something that you desire for all of us to have. We also are told that you've given everyone a measure of it. And so we just pray right now that as we head into this new series and this new season, looking at Hebrews 11, that you would awaken faith in us and help us to join you in the journey. We love you. Be with all of our friends listening and be with all of our friends here on screen recording. We love you, God. In your name, amen. We'll catch y'all next time.